this is the Provoked Prawn, and if I was to show you these fans, you might think they're Lian Li's SL-Infinity fans. They have the infinity mirrors in the middle, some nice RGB lighting across the fan blades and around the outside, and more, but yet they cost me £30 for 3. Now, you can buy these from various different brands across the world. You can get them for $36 in the US, for example, with a slightly different setup. But they're basically the same sort of knockoff version of Lian Li's Infinity fans with some interesting highlights. Now, these fans surprised me in a number of ways, and as you can see, they're really nice looking with some nice large infinity mirrors on the side of the fans and obviously in the center blades. And I built them into the Hyte Y40 because I wanted to test them, see what they were like, get some thermal tests and performance tests to see if they got particularly loud, for example. I'll include some of that information at the end of the video, and I'm going to get into some of the other highlights here as well, because I also used Razer's Chroma RGB controls to adjust the RGB lighting and the effects of it. More on that in a little while. But as you can see, they look really nice in the finished build, and at a glance you just think that they're Lian Li Infinity fans, and yet they're considerably cheaper, so maybe an alternative option. You can see that the fans are available in both standard format and reverse blade, and you can get them in white or black. I've bought a few boxes of the white ones in the reverse and standard blade orientation, so you'll see more of that in a minute. But what you get in the standard box is pretty straightforward. You get 3 fans and then the cabling and the screws. So there's no controller, and that's important to note because that's one big difference between these and the Lian Li Infinity fans. And I will say, out of the box, immediately you can tell the quality difference, and we'll get into more of that in a second. But obviously you're paying a lot less. You are getting some cheaper fans. They do feel cheaper and they do look cheaper on the rear. Those stickers are pretty nasty at the back. And there are some other things as well. The clips that hold the fans together are a bit cheap feeling. The rubber anti-vibration mounts around the screw holes are quite small, and as you can see, the connectors that actually put the 2 fans together are a little bit iffy as well. I actually managed to bend one of the pins on one of those. I actually found it really stiff to put them together too, so they're quite fiddly to put together by comparison to Lian Li's fans. But that's obviously just the initial build part of it. As you've seen already, the lighting on them looks pretty fantastic, and they are actually really good for what you're paying for. I don't know how comfortable I feel promoting knockoffs, because these are clearly just direct copies of Lian Li's fans, but in a worse way, but more affordable. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I wonder whether Lian Li is going to be going after these various different companies, because they are different brands. Because one of the things you'll notice is this brand basically has an unpronounceable name in the UK in the version that I bought, and then there are various different other ones. I'd recommend checking Amazon, basically searching for Unifans, and you'll find variants of these, and I'll leave links in the description to the ones that I've found. But you can see we've got 2 cables included in here with various connectors on them, which might seem intimidating, but these are Unifans that click together, so you can click together 320mm fans, for example, and then you've got 1 cable that connects to the end, which has multiple cables coming off of it, 1 for fan power and 1 for RGB. And there's also a daisy chain connection on those, so you can, in theory, connect multiple things together. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend connecting the fan power for several fans together. I wouldn't recommend connecting 2 groups of fans together and then try and connect it to your motherboard. But the RGB connector is useful, so I'll show you that in a second. Now, this cable that attaches to one end of the block of fans that you've got, as you can see, is quite chunky. That is also fiddly to get on, and it was in the process of doing that to one of the groups of fans that I managed to bend one of the pins, which then caused me problems later on. But what you do with the wiring here is you take the RGB connector and you plug it into the 5-volt 3-pin header on your motherboard, which you usually find a couple of at least on modern motherboards, so it makes it pretty straightforward to be able to wire the fans directly to that for the RGB lighting. And then you have a fan power connector, which you connect up to the system fan header or chassis fan header on your motherboard. And obviously you could do this for several groups of fans and then connect them up directly to the motherboard, and then you control the RGB lighting with your motherboard software, so Armory Crate or MSI's Mystic Light or whatever else you're using, and then you can set it up like that. So the wiring is pretty straightforward, if a little bit messy, because you can see obviously you've got these daisy chain connectors. The reason for that is you can actually connect 2 RGB cables together. So if you have two groups of fans, and let's say you've only got one RGB header on your motherboard, you can simply just connect those fans together with the daisy chain cable, just push them in like that. Alternatively, you could use something like Razer's Chroma RGB controller, which you can plug the 5-volt connections into. And this is what I did, because this opens up more possibilities whereby you can control things with signal RGB, or you can adjust things with Razer's Chroma syncing, which means you can then use chroma effects. Plug the cables into that, then a USB connection to your motherboard, and that'll allow you to control it via Razer's Synapse software. And then you just need to plug it into your power supply unit as well. And for that, you'll need to make sure that you have a Molex cable. So this connects up with a Molex cable, which is an accessory power cable that should be included with your power supply unit. You plug that in and that'll power the Chroma controller, and then you can get the RGB going in your system. Now, the end result of this is a pretty nice looking case, as you see here with the Y40. And initially on standard boot, it was pretty quiet. I didn't see any problems with it, but obviously there's no load going on at the moment, so there was no issues there. But once I started testing, I did find that it did get quite a bit louder. Now, it is quite a compact case, so the thermal performance is a little bit questionable, and I'm running an i9 in it, which I was also pushing to the limits, so it was getting a little bit toasty. And this isn't necessarily down to the fans, it's worth noting, because the i9s have been having some problems that I've done separate videos on. But you can see that with that, the top of the case was getting into the 40 degrees C mark, so pretty toasty up here. And the fans were certainly getting louder, but more on the fan speeds and things in a second. The other thing that I want to show you is what happens if you put the Lian Li Infinity fans alongside these fans to give you a direct comparison. So you can see the fake ones up here and then the Lian Li fans down the bottom. You'll notice they're basically identical, at least on the face of it, with the exception of things like the side mirrors, which are actually a bit smaller on the Lian Li fans, and obviously those rubber anti-vibration mounts around the edges, which are significantly bigger. However, in the hand, they do feel quite a bit different. I noticed immediately when I got these cheaper fake fans out of the box that they felt quite a bit lighter and perhaps more flimsy. On the scales, they weigh about 150 grams each, and the Lian Li Infinity fans, by comparison, are looking at 183, so there's quite a bit more weight in there, and I feel that speaks to the build quality of the Lian Li fans, which I've always thought are fantastic, not just for the way they put together, but the way they work. And you can see if you've got a group of 3 of the Lian Li fans of 552 grams, versus the much lighter knockoff versions, which when you group them together come in at around 447 grams. So this might seem like an odd comparison, but I just wanted to show how much difference there is in that. The other obvious differences with the Lian Li fans, for example, is that they have these connectors that jut out and have contacts between them. They clip together really easily, so the build process is a lot more straightforward. They feel more solid in the hand and more solid when you're building with them as well. And they seem to last, at least mine have lasted. They also have, with the triple pack, when you buy that, these flat connectors which connect onto the other end of the fans and have one single connection. So instead of multiple cables, you end up with this flat connector, which you can then plug into a controller. So you can plug it in directly to a controller that's included with the fans. Like here, you can have up to 4 groups of fans with a total of 16 fans connected to that single controller, which makes it easier to put together, neater to wire, and much less fuss. However, all that said, I'm really surprised by how good these fake fans have been and how good looking they are. As you can see, you've got various different lighting effects. Obviously, it's going to vary from motherboard to motherboard depending on the effects you've got with your RGB software. But with the Razer Chroma software, you can tweak various different things. You can get some nice RGB lighting going on here, and you can sync it to run with your games as well, so you can get various different effects from your games. This includes Chroma-enabled apps, so that you'll get some things where effects happen specifically inside a game. For example, in PUBG, you can see it lights up specifically when you're doing certain things, interacting with the world, or you can set it to react to what's on the screen and change colors according to that. So you get some interesting highlights going on there. So there's quite a lot of flexibility. Obviously, this is mixing the two devices. It doesn't come as standard with the fans, but it is an interesting highlight to it. Now, the one downside I have found is that they are quite a bit louder than Lian Li's fans, at least from what I've seen. And going by the specs, which I'll leave in the description, and a comparison with the Lian Li fans, these fans have a 900 minimum RPM and go up to 1,850 is the top end. They don't have as good airflow. They are a bit louder and just generally not as good, which is what you'd expect, to be fair. But I will note, obviously, that I'm using a smaller case, so they are running faster to deal with the airflow issues in there and keep it cooler. So that is one problem potentially that's caused by that. But they're not so loud. I was actually expecting them to be painfully loud or really horrible, or have a rattle, or maybe the RGB effects will be terrible. But actually, my experience has been one of surprise across the board, and so it's pretty happy report at the end of the day. Again, I don't really feel comfortable with it in that I think Lian Li's product is better quality, better build quality, and you have things in there like better airflow. You've got 0 RPM mode of Lian Li's fans, for example, so they won't even spin if you don't need them to, and they work well in a number of cases and they look great. But these fans, it's hard to deny how good they are for the money, the lighting, reasonable cooling impact as well. They don't seem to be having an issue with that. So if you're looking for an alternative to Lian Li fans, because you've always liked the aesthetic, but you can't quite afford that price tag because it is pretty hefty when you end up buying multiple triple packs to fill up a case, then this might be a valid alternative. So check out the links in the description of the ones that I've found. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more. Also, I'm going to do a full wiring guide on these fans if you do buy them. So come back to see that if you need help. And let me know in the comments below what you think. Would you buy these fans? Are they a good price? Are you tempted? Thanks for watching. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.